Raina Ellis has rebuilt her life after heartbreak, but when a conference brings her face-to-face with the ex-husband who broke her, one question lingers. Can love truly get a second chance? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The bright Baltimore sun streamed through the windows of Raina Ellis's apartment as she prepared for another day of recording her podcast. At 27, Raina had built something she was proud of, a platform where Black women could talk openly about healing and finding themselves again. Her podcast, Bloom After Burn, had started small, but now had thousands of listeners who tuned in every week to hear her gentle but firm advice. "You deserve someone who chooses you every day," Raina said into her microphone, her voice strong and clear. "Not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard." She paused, remembering how those words had become her mantra after her marriage fell apart 3 years ago. The wedding ring that once adorned her finger was now tucked away in a jewelry box she rarely opened. After finishing the recording, Raina checked her emails. There was one from the organizers of the Black Entrepreneurs Conference. They wanted her to be the headline speaker for their Women's Empowerment panel next month. Raina was about to hit reply with an enthusiastic yes when she noticed the sponsor logo at the bottom of the email, Cross Realty Group. Her heart stopped. Cross, Damian Cross, her ex-husband. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered, dropping her phone like it had burned her. 3 years had passed since that night, the night when everything she'd built with Damian came crashing down around her. This marriage was a huge mistake. His words had cut through her like a knife, spoken during what had started as a simple disagreement, but spiraled into the end of their life together. That same night, she had packed her bags and left. No drama, no begging, just a silent goodbye that had cost her more tears than she cared to remember. Raina paced her living room, debating whether to accept the invitation. Saying yes meant possibly seeing Damian again. Was she ready for that? Her phone rang. It was her mother, Loretta, who seemed to have a sixth sense for when her daughter was troubled. "Baby, what's wrong? I can hear you thinking all the way from my house," Loretta said. Raina sighed. "They want me to speak at the Black Entrepreneurs Conference next month." "That's wonderful news," Loretta exclaimed before pausing. "So why do you sound like someone just told you your car needs a new transmission?" "It's sponsored by Cross Realty Group, Damian's company." Silence hung between them for a moment. "And you're worried about seeing him?" Loretta stated rather than asked. "I don't know if I'm ready, Mama." "Raina Ellis, listen to me." Her mother's voice grew firm. "That man didn't stop you from becoming who you are today. Don't let him stop you from shining now." After hanging up, Raina knew her mother was right. She accepted the invitation. Across town, in a sleek high-rise office with floor-to-ceiling windows, Damian Cross sat at his desk reviewing property listings. At 32, he had built Cross Realty Group into one of Baltimore's most successful real estate firms. From the outside, he had everything: success, money, respect in the business community. But inside there was an emptiness that nothing seemed to fill. His assistant knocked on his door. "Mr. Cross, the list of speakers for the Black Entrepreneurs Conference was just finalized. I've emailed it to you for approval, since we're the main sponsor." "Thanks, Angela," Damian said without looking up. Later that evening, as he scrolled through emails on his couch, a name jumped out at him from the speakers list. Raina Ellis, founder of Bloom After Burn wellness platform. Damian's breath caught in his throat. He clicked on her bio and there she was, her warm brown eyes looking confidently at the camera, her smile genuine but somehow guarded. She looked different, stronger, more sure of herself than the young woman he'd married 4 years ago. He found himself typing her name into his search engine, something he'd done more times than he cared to admit over the years. Her podcast had grown popular. There were articles about her work helping women rebuild their lives after heartbreak. After him. Damian closed his laptop and walked to the window. The Baltimore skyline twinkled back at him, but he barely saw it. Instead, he saw the look on Raina's face the night he'd said those terrible words, words he'd regretted every day since. This marriage was a huge mistake. He hadn't meant it. He'd been frustrated, angry about another failed fertility treatment, scared of the distance growing between them, and he'd lashed out. By the time he'd calmed down enough to apologize, she was gone. Her clothes, her favorite books, her vanilla-scented candles, all gone, and his pride had kept him from going after her. Now, 3 years later, she would be walking into his conference, speaking on his stage, and he had no idea what to say to her. The next morning, Damian did something he rarely did. He called his father, Richard Cross. Son, Richard answered gruffly. This is unexpected. I need your advice, Dad, Damien said, already regretting the call. His relationship with his father had always been strained. Richard Cross was a hard man who believed emotions were weakness. About what? Business trouble? No, it's personal. Raina is going to be speaking at the conference we're sponsoring next month. Your ex-wife? The one who walked out on you? Richard's tone turned dismissive. What's the problem? Just avoid her. Damien gripped the phone tighter. That's not what I want to do. Then what do you want, to reopen old wounds? She left you, Damien. Move on like a man. After hanging up, Damien sat in silence. His father's words echoed the voice in his head that had kept him from reaching out to Raina for 3 years. But for the first time, he questioned whether that voice was right. That afternoon he did something else unexpected. He called a therapist his friend had recommended months ago. It was time to talk to someone about the real reason his marriage had fallen apart. His inability to open up, to be vulnerable, to show Raina who he really was beneath the successful businessman facade. The day of the conference arrived faster than Raina expected. She stood in her hotel room, staring at her reflection in the full-length mirror. She wore a crisp white pantsuit that made her dark skin glow, her braided hair cascading down her back. Her hands trembled slightly as she fastened diamond studs in her ears, a gift she'd bought herself when her podcast hit 100,000 subscribers. You are not the same woman who left that house 3 years ago, she told her reflection. You are stronger now, wiser. The conference was being held at the Harbor Grand Hotel, one of Baltimore's most prestigious venues. As Raina walked through the lobby, she felt eyes on her. Some recognized her from her podcast. Others simply admired her confidence as she moved through the crowd. She checked in with the event organizers and received her speaker badge. The woman at the registration desk smiled brightly. We're so excited to have you, Ms. Ellis. Mr. Cross specifically mentioned how pleased he was that you'd agreed to headline the women's panel. Raina's heart skipped. Did he? Oh, yes. He's been very involved with the planning this year. The woman handed her a conference schedule. Your panel is at 2 in the main ballroom. Raina nodded and walked away, her mind racing. So Damien knew she was coming. He was pleased. What did that mean? She attended the morning sessions, trying to focus on the speakers discussing business strategies and investment opportunities for black entrepreneurs, but her mind kept wandering, her eyes scanning the room for a glimpse of Damien. Just before lunch, she stepped into the ladies' room to touch up her lipstick. As she turned to leave, she nearly collided with someone entering. I'm sorry, The words died on her lips. Damien stood there, looking as shocked as she felt. He wore a tailored navy suit that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. His dark eyes widened as they took her in. Raina, he breathed her name like a prayer. Damien. She was proud that her voice didn't shake. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the 3 years between them feeling both like an eternity and no time at all. Do you look? He started. I should go, she cut him off, moving past him. I need to prepare for my panel. Wait. He reached out but stopped short of touching her. Can we talk? After your panel, maybe? Raina hesitated. Part of her wanted to say no, to protect the heart she'd worked so hard to heal, but another part, a part she thought she'd buried, wanted to hear what he had to say. I don't think that's a good idea, she finally said. Please, Raina. Just coffee. In public, His voice softened. I need to tell you something. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. The Damien she'd known had always kept his emotions locked away. Fine. Coffee. After the panel. She walked away before she could change her mind. As Raina took the stage that afternoon, she scanned the audience. There he was, sitting in the back row, his eyes fixed on her. She took a deep breath and began to speak. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over when my marriage ended, she said into the microphone. I had put all my hopes, all my dreams, into being someone's wife. When that was gone, I had to figure out who Raina Ellis really was. The audience nodded, some women murmuring in agreement. What I discovered was that sometimes the best thing that can happen to us is having to rebuild from scratch. It forces us to build stronger foundations. Throughout her talk, she never looked directly at Damien, but she felt his presence like a physical touch. When the panel ended and the audience applauded, she finally allowed herself to meet his gaze. His eyes held something she'd never seen before. Pride. He was proud of her. After answering questions from the audience and taking photos with fans of her podcast, Raina found Damien waiting by the exit. There's a coffee shop across the street, he said. Less chance of being interrupted by conference attendees. They walked in silence, the Baltimore harbor breeze gently blowing between them. Inside the coffee shop, they found a quiet corner table. Damien insisted on ordering for them both, remembering exactly how she took her coffee. Vanilla latte with almond milk. You remember, she said softly when he returned with their drinks. I remember everything about you, Raina. His voice was serious. That's part of what I wanted to talk to you about. Raina wrapped her hands around the warm mug. I'm listening. Damien took a deep breath. First, I need to say I'm sorry, not just for what I said that night, but for all the ways I failed you during our marriage. Raina's eyes widened slightly. The Damien she'd known rarely apologized. I've been seeing a therapist, he continued, for about 8 months now. I'm trying to understand why I couldn't open up to you, why I kept pushing you away when all you wanted was for me to let you in. And have you? Understood it, I mean, she asked. Some of it. My father, he shook his head. That's not an excuse. But I learned from watching him that men don't show weakness, don't talk about feelings. I brought that into our marriage, and it destroyed the best thing in my life. A tear slipped down Raina's cheek before she could stop it. She quickly wiped it away. Your talk today, Damien said, his voice thick with emotion. It was amazing. You're amazing, Raina. What you've built, how you're helping women. I'm so proud of you. Don't, she whispered. Don't say that when you're the one who told me our marriage was a mistake. It wasn't. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. You were never the mistake, Raina. Walking away from you, not fighting for us. That was the mistake. The biggest one I've ever made. Raina stood abruptly. I can't do this. It's too much. She grabbed her purse and hurried out of the coffee shop, her heart pounding. She heard Damien call after her, but didn't stop. Outside, she hailed a taxi and gave the driver her hotel address. As the taxi pulled away, she saw Damien standing on the sidewalk watching her go. And despite everything, despite the walls she'd built around her heart, something inside her whispered that this time, things might be different. Back in her hotel room, Raina kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the bed. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Damien. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm a different man now. If you ever want to talk again, I'll be waiting, for as long as it takes. Raina stared at the message, her finger hovering over the delete button. Instead, she set the phone down without responding. Tomorrow was another day. Tomorrow she would figure out what to do about Damien Cross and the feelings she thought she'd left behind 3 years ago. But tonight, she allowed herself to remember the good and the bad, the love and the pain, and the possibility that sometimes people really could change. Raina woke up the next morning with Damien's text message still unanswered. The second day of the conference would begin in 2 hours, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to face him again. She ordered room service and sat by the window, watching the Baltimore harbor come alive with morning activity. Her phone rang. It was her mother. Good morning, baby. Loretta's warm voice came through. How did it go yesterday? Did you see him? Raina sighed. Yes, Mama, we had coffee after my panel. And? Don't leave me hanging here. He's different, Raina admitted. He apologized for what happened, said he's been seeing a therapist. Loretta made a sound that was half surprise, half approval. Well, that's something I never thought I'd hear. Damien Cross in therapy? I know. He said he's trying to understand why he couldn't open up during our marriage. People can change, baby, Loretta said carefully. But that doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life. I know, Mama. Raina's voice softened. But seeing him again, it brought everything back. The good and the bad. After talking with her mother, Raina got dressed for the day in a deep purple dress that hugged her curves. She thought about Damien's text as she applied her makeup. Part of her wanted to respond, to see if he really had changed. Another part warned her to protect her heart. At the conference, Raina sat through the morning sessions, taking notes but not really focusing. Her eyes kept drifting to the entrance, looking for Damien. He didn't appear. During the lunch break, she was surrounded by women who wanted to talk about her podcast. They shared stories of their own heartbreaks and healing journeys. Raina listened, offered advice, and found herself repeating words she wasn't sure she believed anymore. Sometimes the people who hurt us can't change. As she was heading back to the afternoon sessions, her phone buzzed with another text from Damien. I respect if you need space. I'll be at the closing reception tonight if you want to talk more. No pressure. Raina put her phone away without responding, but that evening, instead of returning to her hotel room, she found herself walking toward the hotel ballroom where the reception was being held. The room was filled with conference attendees networking over drinks and appetizers. Soft jazz played in the background. Raina scanned the crowd but didn't see Damien. Had he given up and left? Looking for someone? The voice behind her made her jump. She turned to find Damien standing there holding 2 glasses of champagne. He offered one to her. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. Raina took the glass. "I wasn't sure either." They moved to a quieter corner of the room. Damien seemed different tonight, more relaxed, less intense than at the coffee shop. "Your panel was the highlight of the conference," he said. "Everyone's been talking about it." "Thank you for sponsoring the event," Raina replied formally, unsure how to navigate this new version of them. "Business has been good," Damien shrugged. "I wanted to give back to the community." An awkward silence fell between them. "Why didn't you ever reach out?" Raina finally asked the question that had been burning inside her for 3 years. "After I left, you never called, never tried to fix things." Damien looked down at his drink. Pride, fear, my father's voice in my head telling me that real men don't beg. He looked up, meeting her eyes. "All the wrong reasons." "And now?" she asked. "Now I'm trying to silence that voice. To be honest about what I want, what I feel." He paused. "I never stopped loving you, Raina." Before she could respond, they were interrupted by a conference organizer who wanted to introduce Raina to some potential sponsors for her podcast. By the time she finished networking, Damien had been pulled into another conversation with business associates. Later, as the reception was winding down, Damien approached her again. "Can I give you a ride to your hotel?" he asked. "We're staying at the same hotel," Raina reminded him. "Right," he smiled, a hint of the charm that had once swept her off her feet. "Shared Uber, then." In the back of the car, they sat with a careful distance between them. The city lights flashed by, illuminating Damien's profile. Raina found herself studying him, the slight grey at his temples that wasn't there 3 years ago, the new lines around his eyes. "I listen to your podcast," he said suddenly. Raina's eyes widened. "You do?" "Every episode," he nodded. "At first I was just curious about what you were doing, but then I found myself looking forward to each new one. You're helping a lot of people, Raina." "Thank you," she said softly, genuinely touched. When they reached the hotel, Damien walked her to the elevator. "My flight leaves tomorrow afternoon," Raina said as they waited. "I should get some rest." "Would you have breakfast with me?" "Before you go," Damien asked. "There's something I want to show you." Raina hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, breakfast. I'll meet you in the lobby at 8, he said, as the elevator doors opened. That night, Raina lay awake in her hotel bed, her mind racing. Was she making a mistake by spending more time with Damien, or would she regret it if she didn't give him a chance to show her who he'd become? The next morning, Damien was already waiting when Raina stepped off the elevator. He wore casual clothes, jeans and a light sweater, so different from his usual business suits. "I thought we'd go to a place I know by the harbor," he said, "if that's okay with you." They walked together, the morning sun warming their faces. Baltimore was beautiful in the early light, the water of the harbor glistening. The restaurant was a small cafe with outdoor seating overlooking the water. After they ordered, Damien pulled a folder from his bag. "This is what I wanted to show you," he said, sliding it across the table. Curious, Raina opened it. Inside were brochures for a grief support center, along with a volunteer badge with Damien's name and photo. "I've been volunteering there for the past 6 months, he explained. "Leading a support group for men dealing with loss." Raina looked up in surprise. "You, leading a support group?" "I know." He smiled ruefully. "The old me would rather have jumped into the harbor, but my therapist suggested it. She said I needed to learn to talk about feelings, not just my own, but to create space for others to share theirs." That's amazing, Damien." "It's been hard," he admitted. "The first few sessions, I was terrible, but it's getting easier. And it's helping me understand what I did wrong with us." Their food arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday," Raina finally said, "about our marriage not being a mistake." "It wasn't," Damien said firmly. "Not to me." "Then why did you say it was?" The question that had haunted her for 3 years. Damien set down his fork. "Because I was scared. The fertility treatments weren't working. You were pulling away. I could feel you slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to hold on without seeming weak. So instead of telling you I was scared of losing you, I pushed you away first." Tears filled Raina's eyes. "I thought you didn't want me anymore, that you'd realized I wasn't enough because I couldn't give you children." "No, Raina, no." Damien reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "It was never about that. I was a coward who couldn't tell his wife he was heartbroken too." For the first time in 3 years, Raina didn't pull her hand away from his touch. After breakfast, they walked along the harbor promenade. The morning was perfect. Warm sunshine, a gentle breeze, seagulls circling overhead. "When does your flight leave?" Damien asked. 4 o'clock, Raina replied. "Would you like to see what I've done with the company? The office is nearby." Raina nodded, curious about this part of Damien's life that had grown in their time apart. Cross Realty Group occupied the top floor of a modern building with views of the entire harbour. As they walked through the office, Damien introduced Raina to his staff. She noticed how they responded to him, with respect but not fear. The Damien she had married had often been intimidating to those who worked for him. In his corner office, Raina was drawn to a wall of photographs, community projects, ribbon cuttings, smiling families in front of new homes. "We've shifted our focus in the last few years," Damien explained. "Less commercial development, more affordable housing, working with first-time homebuyers, especially in historically black neighborhoods." "That's wonderful," Raina said, genuinely impressed. "What prompted the change?" Damien was quiet for a moment. "After you left, I threw myself into work, but it felt empty. I was making money, but not making a difference." He paused. "I kept thinking about what you always said, that success means nothing if you're not helping others succeed too." Raina felt a lump in her throat. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything you taught me, Raina, even the lessons I was too stubborn to learn while we were together." Their eyes met, and for a moment the 3 years between them seemed to disappear. Then Damien's phone rang, breaking the moment. "I need to take this," he said apologetically. "Make yourself comfortable, so I'll just be a minute." While Damien took his call in the hallway, Raina wandered around his office. On his desk was a framed photo she recognized. The two of them on their wedding day, laughing as they fed each other cake. Her heart tightened at the sight of it. Next to it was a stack of printouts. Curious, Raina glanced at them. They were transcripts of her podcast episodes, with sections highlighted and notes in the margins in Damien's handwriting. "Sorry about that," Damien said, returning to the office. He saw what she was looking at and stopped. "I can explain that. You've been studying my podcast," Raina said, picking up one of the pages where he'd written, "Ask myself this question," next to one of her quotes about self-reflection. "Like I said, I listened to every episode," Damien said, looking slightly embarrassed. "Your advice has been helping me work through my own issues." Raina didn't know whether to be flattered or unsettled. "I should go. I need to pack before my flight." "Let me drive you back to the hotel," Damien offered. In the car they were quiet, both aware that their time together was coming to an end. "Will you be back in Baltimore soon?" Damien asked as they pulled up to the hotel. "I don't know," Raina answered honestly. "My podcast tour starts next month. 10 cities in 3 weeks. Is Baltimore on the tour? Not yet. We're still finalizing some dates." Damien parked the car but made no move to get out. "I'd like to see you again, Raina, when you're ready. No pressure, no expectations, just don't disappear from my life again." Raina looked at him, this man who both was and wasn't the husband she'd left 3 years ago. "I'll think about it," she promised. They exchanged phone numbers, properly this time, not just the hasty text he'd sent after the conference. At the hotel entrance they faced each other awkwardly, neither sure how to say goodbye. "Thank you for showing me your work," Raina said. "I'm proud of what you're doing." Damien's face softened at her words. "That means more than you know." Impulsively, Raina stepped forward and hugged him. It was brief, just a moment of contact, but she felt Damien's sharp intake of breath, his arms coming around her gently, like he was afraid she might break. "Goodbye, Damien," she whispered, stepping back. "Not goodbye," he said. "See you soon." 2 weeks later, Raina sat in her apartment in Atlanta, preparing for her upcoming podcast tour. Her producer, Maya, was reviewing the schedule with her. "So that's Chicago, New York, Boston, Los Angeles, Dallas, Miami, Seattle, and Denver confirmed," Maya said. "We're still waiting on Portland and one more city." Raina took a deep breath. "What about Baltimore?" Maya looked surprised. "Baltimore wasn't on our list. It's not one of our top markets." "I'd like to add it," Raina said. "I think there's potential there." "Okay, I'll see what venues are available," Maya made a note. "Any particular reason for Baltimore?" "Just a feeling," Raina replied, avoiding Maya's curious gaze. That evening, Raina called her mother. They talked about the upcoming tour, Loretta's garden, the neighborhood gossip. Finally, Raina brought up what had been on her mind. "I'm adding Baltimore to my tour schedule," she said. Loretta was quiet for a moment. "Does this have anything to do with Damien Cross?" "Maybe," Raina admitted. "We've been texting since the conference. Nothing serious, just checking in. He seems different, Mama. More open, more aware." "Just be careful, baby," Loretta warned. "Sometimes people show you what you want to see until they get what they want." "I know," Raina sighed. "But what if he really has changed? Don't people deserve second chances? Some do, Loretta agreed. But remember what I told you before you married him. Don't mistake fire for warmth, baby. One will keep you alive, the other will leave you ashes. After hanging up, Raina scrolled through her recent texts with Damien. They had been casual, friendly. He'd sent her articles about therapy and emotional growth. She'd shared updates about her podcast. There was a new message from him. Heard from a little bird that Baltimore might be added to your tour. If it's true, I'd love to be there. Raina smiled despite herself. The thought of seeing Damien again sent a flutter through her stomach, part excitement, part fear. Was she setting herself up for more heartbreak? Or was this the beginning of something new? She typed a reply. Baltimore confirmed for May 15th. Would be nice to see a friendly face in the audience. In Baltimore, Damien read Raina's text with a smile. He immediately checked his calendar for May 15th and cleared his schedule for that entire day. Nothing was going to keep him from being there. His phone rang, his father. Damien considered ignoring it but decided to answer. Son, Richard's gruff voice came through. I need you at the country club tomorrow. The Hendersons are interested in that commercial property downtown, and they want to discuss it over golf. I can't, Dad. I have a therapy appointment tomorrow morning, Damien said firmly. Therapy? Richard scoffed. You're still doing that nonsense. What kind of man needs to pay someone to listen to his problems? The kind who lost his wife because he couldn't talk about his feelings, Damien replied, surprising himself with his directness. The kind who's trying to be better. This is about that woman, isn't it? She's got you thinking you need fixing. Damien took a deep breath, controlling his anger. Her name is Raina, Dad. And no, she's not the one who thinks I need fixing. I am. And I'm not doing it for her, I'm doing it for me. You're making a fool of yourself, son. She left you once, she'll do it again. Maybe, Damien admitted. But at least this time, I'll know I did everything I could to be the man she deserves. After hanging up, Damien felt a strange sense of peace. For years he'd sought his father's approval, tried to live up to his expectations of what a man should be. But those expectations had cost him Raina. He wouldn't make that mistake again. He texted his assistant to order flowers for Raina. Not roses, which she'd always found too obvious, but sunflowers, her favorite. With them, he included a simple note. Looking forward to May 15th. I'll be in the front row. Then he opened his laptop and searched for nearby grief support centers. He'd been volunteering at one, but there were others in Baltimore that needed help. If Raina was coming back to Baltimore, even for just one night, he wanted to have something meaningful to show her. Not just words, but actions that proved he was becoming the man he should have been all along. As the weeks passed, Damien threw himself into his volunteer work. He expanded the affordable housing initiative at Cross Realty Group. He continued his therapy sessions, even when they were difficult. And he listened to Raina's podcast religiously, hearing her voice guide others through the very journey he was on himself. May 15th couldn't come soon enough. The day Raina would return to Baltimore. The day Damien would have another chance to show her who he'd become. The day that might begin the rest of their lives, together or apart. But life rarely follows the paths we plan for it, and 3 weeks before Raina's Baltimore show, an unexpected phone call would change everything. 3 weeks before Raina's scheduled appearance in Baltimore, she was reviewing podcast scripts in her Atlanta apartment when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Loretta's name. Mama, I was just about to call you, Raina answered cheerfully. Baby, I need you to come home. Loretta's voice was strained. I'm at the hospital. Raina's heart dropped. Hospital? What happened? They're saying it was a minor stroke. I'm fine, really, but the doctors want to run more tests. I'm coming right now, Raina said, already moving around her apartment, grabbing things she would need. Which hospital? Mercy Medical Center. But don't panic, I'm really okay. 2 hours later, Raina rushed through the hospital doors in Baltimore. She found her mother sitting up in bed, looking tired but alert. Mama, Raina hugged her carefully. You scared me half to death. I told you not to worry. Loretta patted her daughter's hand. It was just a little warning from my body to slow down. The doctor came in soon after, explaining that while the stroke had been minor, they wanted to keep Loretta for observation and start her on new medication. Raina listened carefully, taking notes on her phone. She'll need someone with her for the next few weeks, the doctor advised, just to be safe. I'll stay with her, Raina said immediately. Later, as Loretta dozed, Raina stepped into the hallway to make some calls. She needed to rearrange her podcast tour schedule and ask Maya to handle the first few stops without her. As she ended a call with her producer, Raina looked up to see a familiar figure walking toward her, carrying a bouquet of flowers. "Damien," she gasped. "What are you doing here?" "I heard about your mum," he said, concern evident in his eyes. "Is she okay?" "How did you know?" Raina asked, confused. "Mrs. Wilkins from your mum's church called me. She still has my business card from when I helped her grandson find an apartment last year." He handed Raina the flowers. "These are for Loretta. I know how much she loves lilies." Raina was touched that he remembered her mother's favorite flowers. "That's really thoughtful. She's doing okay. It was a minor stroke, but they're keeping her for observation." "What can I do to help?" Damien asked without hesitation. The simple question, offered so genuinely, made Raina's eyes fill with tears. The stress of the day, the worry about her mother, and the surprise of seeing Damien all combined to break her composure. Hey, Damien said softly, gently pulling her into his arms. "It's going to be okay." Raina allowed herself to lean against his chest for a moment, drawing strength from his solid presence. It felt strangely familiar and new at the same time. "I'm sorry," she said, pulling away and wiping her eyes. "It's been a long day." "No need to apologize," Damien assured her. "Why don't I get you some coffee? You look like you could use it." While Damien went to find coffee, Raina returned to her mother's room. Loretta was awake now, looking at the lilies with a small smile. "Those are beautiful," she said. "Who brought them?" "Damien," Raina admitted. "He somehow heard you were here." Loretta's eyebrows rose. "Damien Cross came to see me in the hospital. He's getting me coffee right now," Raina said, arranging the flowers in a vase by the window. Well, Loretta murmured. "People really do change." When Damien returned with coffee, Loretta greeted him warmly. Raina watched with surprise as her mother and ex-husband chatted easily about the hospital, the doctors, and what Loretta would need when she went home. "I can help with anything you need," Damien offered, "driving to appointments, picking up prescriptions, whatever makes things easier." "That's very kind of you," Loretta said, her shrewd eyes studying him. "But I'm sure you're busy with work." "Nothing's more important than helping family," Damien replied, then caught himself. "I mean, I know I'm not family anymore, but you're here, aren't you?" Loretta said simply. "That counts for something." Later that evening, as visiting hours were ending, Damien walked Raina to her car. "Where are you staying?" he asked. "I thought I'd go to my mom's house. She lives alone, and I'll need to get it ready for when she comes home." "Let me know if you need any help," Damien said. "I mean it, Raina, anything at all." Raina looked at him in the dim light of the parking garage. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because I care about you," he said simply. "And Loretta was always good to me, even when I didn't deserve it." "Thank you," Raina said softly. "For today, for being here. Always," Damien promised. The next few days fell into a routine. Raina spent mornings at the hospital with her mother, and afternoons preparing Loretta's house for her return. To her surprise, Damien showed up each day, sometimes at the hospital with lunch for both women, sometimes at Loretta's house to help with household tasks Raina couldn't manage alone. "You don't have to keep doing this," Raina told him on the third day, as they worked together to rearrange Loretta's bedroom, moving it to the first floor so she wouldn't have to climb stairs. "I want to," Damien said, wiping sweat from his brow as he pushed the heavy dresser into place. "Besides, I'm pretty sure your mom's lasagna recipe is worth all this manual labor." Raina laughed. During one hospital visit, Loretta had mentioned that her freezer needed filling with prepared meals, and Damien had confessed he still dreamed about her lasagna. Loretta had promptly dictated the recipe to him, insisting he learn to make it himself. "It won't be as good as hers," Raina warned. "Not the first time," Damien agreed, "but maybe by the 10th try." The easy camaraderie between them felt both strange and familiar. This was a side of Damien she'd rarely seen during their marriage, relaxed, funny, willing to look foolish as he struggled to follow Loretta's complex recipe. One evening, a week after Loretta's stroke, Raina and Damien sat on her mother's porch swing after a long day of preparations. The house was ready. Handrails installed in the bathroom, bedroom set up downstairs, freezer stocked with meals. "She comes home tomorrow," Raina said, looking out at the quiet street. "The doctor says she's doing great." "She's strong," Damien replied. "Like her daughter." Raina smiled at the compliment. "I called Maya today. We've rescheduled most of my tour dates, but I'm still doing the Baltimore show next month. I'll be here anyway to take care of Mom." "That's great," Damien said, trying not to sound too eager. "The venue is already sold out." They rocked quietly for a while, the swing creaking softly. "Damien," Raina said eventually, "thank you for everything this week. I don't know how I would have managed without you. You would have managed fine, he said. You're the most capable person I know, but I'm glad I could help. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the years between them seemed to melt away. Damien leaned in slightly, and Raina didn't pull back. His lips were inches from hers when the porch light suddenly came on. "Sorry to interrupt," said a male voice. They jumped apart to see a tall man standing at the bottom of the porch steps. He was handsome, with dark skin and a neatly trimmed beard, dressed in scrubs. "Marcus," Raina said, standing quickly. "What are you doing here?" "I came to check on Loretta before my night shift," the man explained, climbing the steps. His eyes moved to Damien with obvious curiosity. "Marcus, this is Damien Cross," Raina introduced them awkwardly. "Damien, this is Dr. Marcus Washington. He's one of my mother's doctors." The two men shook hands, sizing each other up. "Cross," Marcus repeated, "as in the ex-husband." "That's me," Damien confirmed, his posture stiffening slightly. "Marcus is also an old friend," Raina explained. "We went to high school together." "I've been hearing great things about your podcast," Marcus told Raina. "Sounds like you're doing amazing work." "Thank you," Raina smiled. "How's my mother doing today?" "She's in good spirits and responding well to the medication. She should be fine to come home tomorrow as planned." Marcus checked his watch. "I should get to the hospital. Early rounds. It was good seeing you, Raina, and nice meeting you, Damien." After Marcus left, an awkward silence fell between Raina and Damien. "He seems nice," Damien finally said, his voice carefully neutral. "He is," Raina agreed. "He's been a good friend. He helped me a lot after—" She trailed off. "After I hurt you," Damien finished for her. Raina nodded. "We dated for a while, about a year after the divorce. It didn't work out, but we stayed friends." Damien absorbed this information, his jaw tightening slightly. "I see. It's getting late," Raina said, standing up. "I should get some sleep before the big day tomorrow." "So of course." Damien stood too. "I'll come by around 10 to help bring Loretta home, if that's okay." "That would be great," Raina said. "Good night, Damien." "Good night, Raina." He hesitated, then stepped forward and placed a quick, gentle kiss on her cheek before walking to his car. Raina touched her cheek where his lips had been, watching his taillights disappear down the street. Things were getting complicated again, and she wasn't sure if that was good or bad. Loretta's homecoming went smoothly. Damien arrived as promised, helping to get her settled in her new first-floor bedroom. He had brought her favorite flowers again, and a stack of mystery novels he remembered she enjoyed. "You're spoiling me, Damien Cross," Loretta said as she settled into her recliner. "What will the neighbors think?" "They'll think you have good taste in caregivers," he replied with a grin. Raina watched their easy interaction with mixed emotions. Seeing Damien be so attentive to her mother warmed her heart, but it also made her wonder what might have been if he had been this man during their marriage. Later that afternoon, Marcus stopped by to check on Loretta. He raised an eyebrow when he saw Damien was still there but said nothing. "Everything looks good, Mrs. Ellis," Marcus said after checking Loretta's vital signs. "Just remember to take it easy for the next few weeks." "With these two hovering over me, I don't think I'll be allowed to lift a finger," Loretta complained good-naturedly. "That's the idea," Raina said firmly. As Marcus was leaving, he asked Raina to walk him out. On the porch, he turned to her with concern in his eyes. "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" he asked quietly. "What do you mean?" "Damien. He hurt you pretty badly, Raina. I was there, remember? I saw what it did to you." Raina sighed. "People change, Marcus." "Some do," he conceded. "But be careful. I don't want to see you get hurt again." After Marcus left, Raina returned to find Damien in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Everything okay?" he asked, not looking up from the vegetables he was chopping. "Fine," Raina said, picking up a knife to help. "Marcus is just being protective. He cares about you," Damien observed. "I can't blame him for that." They worked side by side, falling into an easy rhythm that reminded Raina of early days in their marriage, before things got complicated. Back then, cooking together had been one of their favorite activities. "Do you remember that time we tried to make beef Wellington?" Raina asked with a smile. Damien laughed. "How could I forget? We set off the smoke alarm and your pastry looked like a deflated football." "Your fault for distracting me," Raina teased. "I seem to recall you started it," Damien replied, his eyes twinkling with the memory. For a moment they were just Raina and Damien again, young and in love, with no painful history between them. Then Loretta called from the living room, breaking the spell. The days fell into a new routine. Raina worked remotely, managing her podcast and preparing for her upcoming show in Baltimore. Damien came by most evenings after work, sometimes bringing dinner, sometimes cooking with Raina. Loretta watched them with knowing eyes but said nothing. 2 weeks after Loretta came home, Raina was working on her podcast in the kitchen when Damien arrived earlier than usual. He looked troubled. "What's wrong?" Raina asked, immediately concerned. "My father had a heart attack," Damien said, his voice strained. "He's in surgery now." "Oh, Damien, I'm so sorry." Raina stood and moved toward him. "Which hospital?" "Johns Hopkins. I was there all morning, but I couldn't just sit and wait." He ran a hand through his hair. "I know it's a lot to ask, but would you come with me? I don't want to be alone right now." Without hesitation, Raina grabbed her purse. "Let me just tell my mother where I'm going." At the hospital, they sat together in the cardiac unit waiting room. Damien was quiet, his face drawn with worry. Despite their difficult relationship, Richard Cross was still his father, and the fear of losing him was etched in every line of Damien's face. "Tell me about a good memory with your dad," Raina said, trying to distract him. Damien thought for a moment. "When I was 10, he took me fishing, just the two of us. He wasn't on his phone, wasn't talking about business. He taught me how to bait a hook and how to wait patiently for the fish to bite." "That sounds nice," Raina encouraged. "It was. For that one day, he was just my dad. Not the successful businessman, not the tough guy who never showed weakness. Just my dad." Damien's voice cracked slightly. "I've been chasing that version of him ever since." Raina took his hand, holding it between both of hers. "I'm right here," she promised, "as long as you need." Hours later, a surgeon approached them. "Mr. Cross, your father is out of surgery. It was touch and go for a while, but he's stable now. Can I see him?" Damien asked, standing up. "Briefly. He's still heavily sedated." Damien turned to Raina. "Will you come with me?" She nodded, following him to the ICU. Richard Cross looked small and vulnerable in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines and tubes. Damien approached slowly, as if afraid to disturb him. "Dad," he said softly, taking his father's hand. "I'm here." Richard's eyes fluttered open briefly. He looked at Damien, then at Raina standing behind him. A faint look of recognition crossed his face, before his eyes closed again. "The surgery went well," a nurse told them. "But he's got a long recovery ahead. His heart was badly damaged." Outside in the hallway, Damien leaned against the wall, his face in his hands. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted. "Be what he needs." "Yes, you can," Raina said firmly. "You're stronger than you think, Damien." He looked at her, his eyes red-rimmed. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen it," she said simply. "These past weeks with my mother. The man you've become." Damien straightened up, drawing strength from her words. "Will you help me? I know it's not your responsibility, but—" "Of course I will," Raina interrupted. "That's what—" She hesitated. "That's what friends do." Friends. The word felt both right and wrong. They were more than friends, less than lovers, stuck in this in-between place that neither of them knew how to navigate. In the days that followed, they developed yet another routine. Mornings with Loretta, afternoons at the hospital with Richard. Raina was surprised to find herself becoming a bridge between father and son, helping them communicate in ways they never had before. One afternoon, as Raina sat by Richard's bedside while Damien spoke with the doctors, the older man reached for her hand. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice weak but clear. "Damien asked me to come," she answered honestly. "But why did you say yes, after what happened between you two?" Raina considered the question. "Because people deserve second chances, sometimes even third or fourth chances." Richard studied her face. "He's different with you, softer. I always saw that as weakness." "It's not weakness to let people see who you really are," Raina said gently. "It takes strength to be vulnerable." Richard closed his eyes, but not before Raina saw the tears gathering in them. "I may have taught my son the wrong things," he admitted quietly. "It's not too late to teach him new ones," Raina suggested. When Damien returned, he found his father and ex-wife holding hands, both with tears in their eyes. Something had shifted, though he wasn't sure what. That evening, as they left the hospital together, Damien stopped Raina before she could get into her car. "My father said something to me today," he told her. "He said I was a fool to let you go, and an even bigger fool if I didn't do everything in my power to win you back." Raina's eyes widened in surprise. "Richard Cross said that?" "He did," Damien confirmed, stepping closer to her. "And he's right. I was a fool, Raina. The biggest fool, but I'm trying not to be that man anymore." He took her hands in his. "I know we've been through a lot. I know I hurt you in ways I can never fully make up for. But these past weeks, being with you, helping your mother, you helping my father, it feels right. Like we're getting a second chance to do things the way they should have been done the first time." "Damien," Raina began, her heart racing. "I'm not asking for an answer right now," he said quickly. "I know there's still a lot we need to work through. I just wanted you to know how I feel, that I love you, that I never stopped loving you." Before she could respond, he leaned down and kissed her, not on the cheek this time, but fully on the lips. It was gentle but firm, a promise rather than a demand. When they broke apart, Raina was breathless. "I need time," she whispered. "Take all the time you need," Damien said. "I'm not going anywhere." As she drove home that night, Raina's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. The kiss had awakened feelings she thought were long buried. But was it enough? Could love be enough this time when it hadn't been before? At home, she found her mother still awake, watching a late-night talk show. "You're up late," Raina observed, sitting beside her on the couch. "Couldn't sleep," Loretta said. "How's Richard doing?" "Better. The doctors are pleased with his progress." Raina hesitated, then added, "Damien kissed me tonight." Loretta turned to look at her daughter. "And how do you feel about that?" "Confused, scared, happy," Raina sighed. "I don't know, Mama. What if we're just repeating the past?" "Do you think you are?" Loretta asked. "No," Raina admitted. "He's different now. I'm different too." "Then maybe this isn't the past repeating itself. Maybe it's a new beginning." Raina considered her mother's words. A new beginning. Was that possible after everything they'd been through? Her phone buzzed with a text from Damien. "Thank you for today, for everything. Sleep well. Simple. Honest. No pressure." Raina typed back, "You too, see you tomorrow." As she got ready for bed that night, Raina thought about the upcoming podcast show, now just 1 week away. She had planned to talk about moving on after heartbreak, about building a new life. But maybe there was another story to tell, about second chances, about the possibility of rebuilding what was once broken. Maybe, just maybe, the mistake Damien had once claimed their marriage to be could become the best thing that ever happened to both of them, because it had broken them down only to build them back up stronger, wiser, and more ready for love than they had ever been before. But as Raina drifted off to sleep, one question still nagged at her. Was she brave enough to risk her heart again with the man who had once shattered it? The answer would come sooner than she expected, and in a way, neither of them could have predicted. The week leading up to Raina's podcast show in Baltimore flew by in a blur of hospital visits, podcast preparations, and stolen moments with Damien. Both Loretta and Richard were improving, Loretta getting stronger each day. Richard finally moved out of the ICU into a regular room. The night before her show, Raina sat at her mother's kitchen table, finalizing her speaking notes. Her phone buzzed with a text from Damien. "Nervous about tomorrow?" She smiled and typed back, "A little. It's different when you know someone in the audience." His response came quickly. "You'll be amazing. You always are." Raina set down her phone, her stomach fluttering. In the past week, things had shifted between them. That kiss in the hospital parking lot had opened a door neither of them seemed willing to close again. They hadn't discussed it. There hadn't been time with both their parents needing them, but something had changed. "You look happy," Loretta observed, coming into the kitchen for her evening tea. "Do I?" Raina asked, looking up from her notes. Loretta nodded, putting the kettle on. "It's nice to see. I'm just excited about tomorrow's show," Raina said, not quite meeting her mother's knowing gaze. "And it has nothing to do with a certain real estate developer who's been coming around every day?" Loretta raised an eyebrow. Raina sighed. "It's complicated, Mama." "Love usually is," Loretta replied, sitting across from her daughter. "But sometimes the most complicated things are the most worthwhile." "What if we're making the same mistake twice?" Raina asked, voicing the fear that had been nagging at her. "Baby, listen to me." Loretta reached for her hand. "When you two were together before, you were both so young. He didn't know how to open his heart, and you didn't know how to demand what you deserved. And now? Now I see a man who's learned what matters, and a woman who knows her worth." Loretta squeezed her hand. "That's a whole different starting point." Raina considered her mother's words as she finished her preparations for the show. Maybe Loretta was right. Maybe they weren't repeating the past, but creating something new from the lessons they'd learned. The next evening, the Baltimore Community Theater was packed for Raina's live podcast recording. The event had sold out within days of being announced, and the energy in the room was electric. Backstage, Raina peeked through the curtains at the growing crowd. Her eyes scanned the front row, but she didn't see Damien. "Looking for someone?" Maya asked, coming up beside her. "Just checking the crowd," Raina said quickly. "It's a full house," Maya confirmed. "Your hometown really showed up for you." Raina's phone buzzed with a text. It was Damien. "Running late. Dad had a doctor's appointment. Save me a seat? Disappointment washed over her. She had been counting on seeing his face in the audience, drawing strength from his presence. She texted back a quick, "Of course," and tried to refocus on her show. At precisely 7 now, Raina walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause. The lights were bright, making it hard to see the audience clearly. "Good evening, Baltimore," she greeted, settling into the comfortable armchair set up center stage. "It's good to be home." The crowd cheered, and Raina felt herself relax. This was what she did best, connecting with people, sharing stories of healing and growth. "Tonight's episode of Bloom After Burn is about second chances," she began. "About the courage it takes to rebuild what's broken, whether that's your life, your confidence, or sometimes," she paused, "your heart." For the next hour, Raina shared stories from her listeners about healing and forgiveness. She talked about her own journey after divorce, carefully not mentioning Damien by name, but drawing on their experience to help others. "The hardest lesson I learned," she told the audience, "was that sometimes the end of one chapter is necessary for the beginning of another. Sometimes we need to break apart to rebuild stronger." As the show moved into the Q&A portion, Raina scanned the crowd again. Still no sign of Damien. She tried not to let her disappointment show as she called on audience members with raised hands. "My question is about forgiveness," a woman in the third row said. "How do you know when someone deserves a second chance?" "That's a powerful question," Raina nodded. "I believe second chances aren't something we give because others deserve them, but because we deserve peace. Forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about choosing not to carry that pain anymore." She continued taking questions, each one thoughtful and engaging. The audience was with her completely, hanging on her every word. Despite Damien's absence, the show was going better than she had dared hope. "We have time for one more question," Raina announced, pointing to someone at the back of the auditorium whose hand had just gone up. The spotlight swung to illuminate the questioner, and Raina's heart stopped. It was Damien standing tall at the back of the room. "My question is simple," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the theater. "Can a man who broke a woman's heart ever be worthy of it again?" A murmur ran through the crowd as people turned to look at him. Raina gripped the arms of her chair, trying to steady herself. "That depends," she managed to say, her voice remarkably calm despite her racing heart. "Has he learned from his mistakes? Has he done the work to become someone different?" "He has," Damien said, beginning to walk slowly down the center aisle toward the stage. "He spent every day trying to unlearn what made him hurt her, trying to become the man she always deserved." The audience was completely silent now, captivated by the real-life drama unfolding before them. "And what would this man say to her now?" Raina asked, her voice barely above a whisper as Damien reached the foot of the stage. "He would say that she was never the mistake." Damien's voice broke with emotion. "Losing her was, and if she could find it in her heart to give him another chance, he wouldn't fight to win her this time. He would fight to deserve her, every single day." Tears filled Raina's eyes as Damien climbed the steps to the stage. The audience seemed to hold its collective breath. "Raina Ellis," Damien said, now standing before her, "I love you. I have always loved you, even when I was too broken to show it. I'm not asking you to forget the past. I'm asking you to believe in our future." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed not an engagement ring, but a simple silver key. "This is the key to my heart," he said softly. "It's yours if you want it. No pressure, no rush, just a promise that this time I'm not locking anything away from you." The theater was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Raina looked at the key, then at Damien's face. So open, so vulnerable, so different from the guarded man she had married. Slowly she stood and took the microphone. "For those of you just tuning in," she said with a shaky smile, "this is Damien Cross, my ex-husband." A ripple of recognition went through the audience. "What you need to understand," Raina continued, looking directly at Damien, "is that the man standing here today is not the same man I married 4 years ago. That man couldn't talk about his feelings. That man pushed me away when things got hard." Damien nodded, accepting her words without defense. "But this man," Raina's voice softened, "this man shows up. When my mother was in the hospital, he was there. When I needed someone to lean on, he was there. Not because he wanted something from me, but because that's who he's become, someone who shows up." She reached out and took the key from the box, closing her fingers around it. "I can't promise where this will lead," she told him honestly, "but I'm willing to find out. Together." The audience erupted in applause as Damien pulled Raina into his arms. Their kiss was sweet and tender, a promise of things to come. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I think I'm falling in love with you again too," she admitted. "The real you this time." As the applause continued around them, Raina suddenly remembered they had an audience. She pulled back slightly, her cheeks flushing. "Well," she said into the microphone, laughing softly, "I guess that's a wrap on tonight's show about second chances." The audience laughed with her, many wiping away tears. Damien kept his arm around her waist as she thanked everyone for coming and reminded them to subscribe to the podcast. As they left the stage together, Maya rushed up to them, her eyes wide with excitement. "That was amazing. The social media reaction is blowing up. Everyone loves your love story." "It's not just a story," Damien said, his eyes never leaving Raina's face. "It's our life." Outside the theater, they found both Loretta and Richard waiting for them. To Raina's surprise, the two parents were sitting together, deep in conversation. "Mum, what are you doing here? You should be resting at home," Raina exclaimed. "And miss my daughter's big night? Not a chance," Loretta said firmly. "Besides, Richard was kind enough to send his driver to pick me up." "Dad, you came too?" Damien was equally surprised. Richard Cross, still looking pale from his heart attack but sitting tall in his wheelchair, nodded. "I wouldn't miss it, not after everything you've told me about Raina's work." "We saw your big moment," Loretta smiled at them both. "Very romantic, though a bit public for my taste," Richard added, but there was a twinkle in his eye. "We're proud of you both," Loretta said, reaching out to take Raina's hand. "It takes courage to try again." Later that night, after dinner with their parents at a quiet restaurant near the harbor, Raina and Damien walked along the waterfront. The moon was full, casting a silver path across the dark water. "I can't believe you did that," Raina said, still processing the events of the evening, in front of all those people. "I wanted everyone to know how serious I am about us," Damien explained. "No more hiding, no more walls." "The key was a nice touch," Raina admitted, pulling it from her pocket to look at it in the moonlight. "I thought about a ring," Damien said, "but that felt like too much pressure. I want us to take our time, do things right." "Smart man," Raina smiled. "We've both changed so much. We need to get to know each other again." They stopped walking. Turning to face each other, Damien took both her hands in his. "I know one thing that hasn't changed," he said softly. "How I feel about you. That's the one constant in all of this, Raina. Through all my mistakes, all my growth, all my trying to be better, loving you has been the North Star guiding me home." Raina felt tears prick her eyes again. "When did you learn to talk like that?" The Damien I knew couldn't express his feelings to save his life. "Therapy," he grinned. "Lots and lots of therapy. And listening to every episode of your podcast at least twice." She laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet harbor. "So what happens now?" "Now we take it one day at a time," Damien said. "No rushing, no pressure, just us learning how to be us again. Better this time." "I'd like that," Raina nodded. "But there is one thing I need from you, Damien." "Anything," he promised immediately. "I need complete honesty, even when it's hard, even when you think it might hurt me or make you look bad. I can't do secrets or silence again." "You have my word," Damien said solemnly. "No more locked doors between us, literally or figuratively." Raina sealed his promise with a kiss, feeling for the first time in years that she was exactly where she was meant to be. 6 months later, the garden behind Loretta's house was transformed with twinkling lights and flowers for Raina's 28th birthday celebration. Friends and family mingled on the lawn, enjoying the warm summer evening. Loretta, fully recovered from her stroke, was holding court on the porch, telling stories to Raina's podcast fans who had become friends. Richard Cross, still using a cane but much improved, was deep in conversation with Marcus about cardiac health innovations. Raina stood by the refreshment table, watching it all with a contented smile. The past 6 months had been a journey of rediscovery, of herself, of Damien, of what they could be together. They had taken things slowly, dating properly this time. Dinners, movies, long walks where they talked about everything and nothing. Damien had continued his therapy, and Raina had started seeing a counselor too, working through her own fears about trusting again. "Penny for your thoughts," Damien said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Raina leaned back against him. "A year ago, I never would have imagined this." "Having a party with both our parents actually getting along," Damien chuckled. "Yeah, that's still weird to me too." "Not just that," Raina turned in his arms to face him. "Us, how far we've come, Damien's face softened. We've worked hard to get here. And they had. There had been bumps along the way, moments when old patterns threatened to emerge, when fear made them pull back. But each time, they had chosen to face those moments together, to talk through them, to keep moving forward. I have something for you, Damien said, taking her hand. A birthday present. You already gave me those gorgeous earrings, Raina protested, touching the diamond studs in her ears. This is different. He led her away from the party to the quiet corner of the garden, where a bench sat beneath an old oak tree. From his pocket, Damien pulled out a small box, the same velvet box that had held the key 6 months ago. Damien, Raina breathed, her heart racing. Before you panic, he said quickly. This isn't what you think. Or maybe it is, but not in the way you think. He opened the box to reveal a beautiful silver ring with a single sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. This isn't an engagement ring, Damien explained. It's a promise ring, a promise that I'm committed to us, to this journey we're on together. A promise that whenever you're ready, whether that's 1 year from now or 5 years from now, I'll be here, loving you, choosing you every single day. Tears of joy filled Raina's eyes as she took the ring from the box. It's beautiful. It reminded me of your eyes, Damien said softly, the way they sparkle when you're happy. I am happy, Raina realized, the truth of it washing over her, happier than I've ever been. She slipped the ring onto her right hand, admiring how it caught the garden lights. It's perfect. You're perfect, Damien said, pulling her close. Perfect for me. Always have been. We were too young before, Raina said thoughtfully. Too broken in our own ways. And now? Now we're older, wiser. Still a little broken, maybe, she smiled, but broken in complementary ways. Our jagged edges fit together now. From across the garden, they heard Loretta calling everyone for the birthday cake. Damien stood and offered Raina his hand. Ready to go back to the party, Miss Ellis? He asked with a smile. In a minute, Mr. Cross, she replied, pulling him down for a kiss. I'm just enjoying this moment. As their lips met, Raina knew with absolute certainty that whatever the future held, they would face it together. The mistakes of their past had led them here, to this second chance, this new beginning, this love that was stronger for having been broken and mended. Later that night, as the last guests were leaving, Loretta pulled Raina aside. Remember what I told you years ago, she asked, glancing at Damien, who was helping Richard to the car. About fire and warmth. Don't mistake fire for warmth, baby, Raina recited. One will keep you alive, the other will leave you ashes. Look at him now. Loretta nodded toward Damien, who was patiently helping his father navigate the garden path. That's warmth, baby. Real, steady warmth. Raina smiled, touching the promise ring on her finger. I know, Mama. I feel it every day. As Damien walked back toward her, his face lighting up with that special smile he reserved just for her, Raina felt a sense of peace settle over her. The journey hadn't been easy, and there would surely be challenges ahead, but she knew now that some mistakes were worth making, if they led you back to where you were always meant to be. In Damien's arms, Raina had found not just the passion they'd always shared, but something deeper, something lasting. She had found home. And as he reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers with a gentle squeeze that said, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, Raina knew that what had once seemed like the biggest mistake of their lives had become the best thing that ever happened to them, because sometimes it takes losing something precious to understand its true value. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get a second chance to prove you've learned that lesson, a chance to love better, deeper, and more honestly than before. For Raina and Damien, that second chance was just beginning, and this time, neither one of them was letting go. The end.